Men of Reddit who are in a female-dominated career field, what are the biggest obstacles that you have faced while working that field? I am one of 2 receptionists in an office. People tend to think I'm gay. Oftentimes, I don't tell women what I do because they think the same thing. I work in healthcare and occasionally cover at the reception desk to help out and pick up extra hours. I've had guys chuckle at me, asking why I chose a woman's job. I've also had older women say they're not comfortable with me helping them, since a receptionist should not be a man. Very frustrating. I worked as a teaching assistant in a primary school. 95% female teachers and I was the only male TA out of around 25 TAs. When I started, the head, deputy head and the class teacher I would be working with had a torrent of complaints about hiring a male TA. I was told that whenever the kids, year 1, ages 5-6, were changing for pay or swimming I had to leave the room and swap with a female TA even though the male class teacher next door was fine to stay in the room. It made it very difficult because often the other TAs would be busy, so my class teacher would have to help 24, 5, 6-year kids getting dressed single-handedly. A lot of the parents wouldn't speak to me at first, either. I'd say around half the parents would avoid me. They warmed to me eventually, when the kids showed how much they loved me and I had earned the parents' trust. At the end, when I left, for unrelated reasons, all of the parents gave me loads of gifts. A pretty hefty gift card, and one of them actually made a comment about how they treated me originally and how surprised and happy they were with me by the end. It was definitely an uphill struggle though, and I was certainly treated very differently because of my gender. I work in nursing. The biggest obstacle is female patients not wanting you to work with them. Understandable, and I don't really mind because it's less work for me. The only time I get upset is when they have to add some derogatory comment like men aren't supposed to be nurses anyway, why do they have to say anything? They could just say they prefer a lady. Occasionally family members of the patients will say something about me being a guy, but most of the time it's from some lame guy that does something like work at a convenience store, so I don't take it too personally. Seems like male nurses are becoming more common though. Maybe in 10 years people will stop asking you if you want to be a doctor. I'm a makeup artist at a major cosmetic company. I'm always overlooked when it comes to advice or just doing makeup in general. If I ask someone if they need help matching foundations or if they want me to do a smoky eye, they instantly will tell me no and wait for a female to be available to ask questions to. I've literally had women tell me I wouldn't be able to help them because I don't know anything about makeup. First of all, I'm the manager, and my actual job is to know everything about everything. There's a man who works at my local Sephora and I love taking advice from him. His makeup looks better than mine ever has and he's the nicest one of the bunch. I'm sorry people treat you that way. It's their loss. I'm a special education teacher. I have parents that can't stand me because I am a guy. The kids are fine. It's the parents that make it difficult. This year, I actually had a parent call the principal day 2 of the school year and say that I'm not caring enough and say men just don't get special needs kids. This parent has been heck. Also, even though I'm qualified and able to do so, I don't help with toileting. I'm a severe handicap teacher. I can see both sides of this. There have been numerous times a student needed toileting and all of my aides were out or on break or pushed in, and I had to wait, with a screaming kid, blocking all instructional time, until they got back. At the same time, I understand parent concerns with this. Seems like male teachers have to earn a parent's trust rather than them trusting male teachers from the beginning. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. Gymnastics coach. Not too many actual obstacles per se, but when you work with young children some will either be scared shitless of you, since you're usually the first male they've met that isn't family, or the older ones will give you attitude because they don't believe you know what you're talking about. I've also had one of my co-workers override one of my corrections, since that may be how it is for men's gymnastics, but in women's gymnastics it's a little different. Granted, there are some cases where that argument has traction, but technique is technique, and blocking is a pretty universal gymnastics concept. Plus there are some things that you have to be careful aware of, especially in the current climate. Making sure you're never alone with a gymnast, being careful when you're spotting, that kind of thing. Geez, I am sure you love gymnastics and all, but I can't see the negatives of that job outweighing the positive. I wanted to work with special needs children and got to spend a year as a substitute para-aide, and I ultimately decided not to pursue the career choice. Too many times I'd have parents incredulous at the fact that their child was being supervised by a male. I also had a few teachers who felt it necessary to watch me like a damned hawk, and it made me very uncomfortable. There was one boy with Asperger's that I was able to befriend, and he always wanted to hold my hand while walking in between classes. To me it was a good sign. To others it was not, and I was warned not to have physical contact with children. The worst one had to be when children recognized me in public and how their parents would lose their crap. I had one child shout up and down at me at the gas station, and I waved hello only for the dad to lose his shit and ask me why I was waving at his son. Because I was his substitute 2 days ago. There was also a time I was tackle hugged from behind and the girl's mother rips her off of my legs. This all happened in an instant before I even had time to react. And she starts screaming bloody murder in the middle of the store as to what I was doing with her daughter. Listen lady, she hugged me and I didn't even see her coming. It took the daughter screaming over her mom that I was the nice man that works with the special needs kids. This was only part of the equation as to why I never pursued it. I work as a public librarian, which I'd estimate is about 80% women in the city I work for. I'm mostly on the information resources side, like database, local history, genealogy, small business, and research work, but I occasionally do programming involving youth stuff. It mostly involves working to get child literacy up, reading frequency up, general outreach to let people know what we offer, etc. Women with children really don't like being given parenting literacy advice from an unmarried male in his 20s with no children, no matter how many sources you cite. I work in HR. For the past year, though, I've worked in payroll. I'm the only male, except for one girl who's my age. Everyone is 50 plus. It drives me insane. Everyone is passive AF and lets the crappy co-workers walk all over them. However, our MGR is the same and gets defensive when it's brought up. Add in the constant men can't domestic, when you getting married kids, and I want to bash my head against the wall. I am a kindergarten teacher, and while I've never had a problem outright with a parent or co-worker, you can just tell I'm treated a little different. I don't get included in the other teachers' gossip or group talk or invited out for drinks after school on Fridays. They are super nice and professional to me, but there's always that little difference hanging around. Still love my job, would never change it. I worked at a childcare center during my 4 years of undergrad and the first year of my master's program. Honestly, the hardest part is getting people to trust you. Out of 70 plus staff members, there were only 3 men in the entire building, spread out in 3 different classrooms. It took a few weeks for the staff members to trust me and feel confident in my abilities to care for the children. It took even longer for parents to get used to having a male in the classroom, and often asked the lead teacher if I would be changing diapers. Once I built a relationship with each parent, things changed for the better. I was able to use my reputation to move to a different classroom, and soon found parents telling me how having a male in the classroom creates a different feel, for the better. Honestly, the hardest part is getting people to trust you. Well, I was very hopeful in reading your username until you broke my trust with just 1 letter. How ironic. I was a receptionist for a bit, and the only male in the office. I also have bad back pain and disabled. Still can walk. Invisible disability. I was expected to do all the heavy lifting and manual labor, and when I brought up that I'm disabled, something they knew when hiring me, they conveniently forgot. Most everyone in the office had more body strength than me, and I wasn't even the only receptionist. Just all the manual labor jobs went to me for some odd reason. I left because of this, and that it was making my pain worse. I have hernia since 23. I also left because of heavy lifting, even though I told them about my health during job interview. The employer even got mad because I let them down. Sheesh. Stay-at-home dad for 13 years. Got sexist remarks daily, especially from older women. Either they weren't raised right, or but she comes home and cooks though right, or they get offended. They thought our kids would be lacking. Have 5 awesome, well-adjusted, funny, beautiful, straighter, athletic kids. For me, it's when my kids don't get invited to group play dates because I'm a dude. But, yeah, I feel you're with that last sentence. It's nothing specific to the job. I am basically in social work, but I'm basically the only person who knows how to navigate computer problems or lift things that are heavier. It used to annoy me pretty bad at my last job. Haven't ran into it much at my new location. One time, a girl called me over to help her hook up a monitor. Being as I don't know much about computers, I just search straightforward Google questions and figure crap out that way. I didn't know the one port name, the one that kinda looks like an HDMI, but if flat one side. So I asked the girl to just Google that last explanation, so we could get the port name, and see if it would split her screen. After calling me over for my help, she couldn't be bothered to simply write out exactly what I told her to into Google, and that's how you end up on your own for all your future computer problems. I think you are looking for DisplayPort, but definitely it is understandable to have to Google that. Pilates instructor here. To my knowledge, I live on Maui. I am the only non-female Pilates instructor on the island. I don't believe it's an obstacle. My clientele are self-selecting. If somebody has a preference for a female instructor, they would never walk into my studio in the first place. I think it may be an asset, in as much as some people prefer a male personal trainer and they will self-refer themselves to me. Biggest obstacle as a Pilates instructor overall? Men not taking Pilates seriously as a physical training discipline esp for people with injuries or physical issues. Since Pilates is very adaptable and can work around all sorts of stuff, replacement joints, arthritis, etc. So many of my lady clients will try and get their hubbies or SOS to come see me and the guys say stupid shit like that's girl stuff. But on the occasion they do finally come in to see me, they often have this unspoken attitude like I'm only here because my wife made me promise me sexual favor of choice. Once the session begins, always do an intake interview before we start so I know their exercise and injury history. It usually takes about 5-10 minutes before their attitude is oh shit, this is hard. 8. I'm a male nurse that works on a labor and delivery floor. I've been told more than a few times that they don't want me in there for the birth, like I'm in there jerking off to them or something. I always tell them too bad, you're going to deal with it. I'm the only nursery nurse present so I literally have no other choice. I used to work at a pizzeria a few years back. There were 4 guys total and everyone else was girls age 16-24 so I was always almost the only guy in my shift. The thing that surprised me the most were how on an individual level the girls were super nice but I did notice that in groups a weird mob mentality would take over. They were really mean to some of the girls. They even made one cry really bad one time. I just did my job and tried to stay away from the drama. Oh, and I was always the guy who had to do the heavy lifting. This is extremely relatable. I used to work at a daycare because I love working with kids. I was mainly on playtime and snack time duty. The parents hated me, accused me of being inappropriate, goth phase, black mop head, skinny jeans, black everything always, and that I was unfit to be around kids. I was moved to cleanup duty before I ended up quitting. Wasn't worth the grief of some of the more vocal patrons. While I know nothing about the daycare industry, that does sound like a pretty unprofessional appearance. If I had kids, I'd probably feel uncomfortable leaving them with some grunge too, male or female. I was told I was being passed up for promotions because women want to hire other women to balance gender discrimination. I was one of 2 men in the department. Didn't seem balancing to me. My first job was data entry, not inherently a female-dominated career, but the work staff was around 40 for this area, and I was the only male. I was mostly ignored, almost like I was a ghost, routinely excluded from conversation and group activities. I was there for like a year and a half, and the only time someone talked to me was when I messed up on something. Even then I felt like they were struggling to do that. Was weird how you could feel so lonely at a job. I work for the company that produces a top feminine care brand in the US as a financial analyst. All of our sales staff, customer insights, brand team, and shopper marketing team members are women. There are often meetings where I'm the only man in the room. The biggest issue I run into is that I don't use the product, and that's often used to discredit my financial analysis as it applies to strategy. I get I've never used a tampon that doesn't make my margin analysis any less valid. The biggest issue I run into is that I don't use the product, and that's often used to discredit my financial analysis as it applies to strategy. I get I've never used a tampon. That doesn't make my margin analysis any less valid. Exactly. What a crock of crap. I used to do makeup. The biggest obstacle came up all the time. It just blew me away, the prejudice that I was the lesser makeup artist. Why was I even there? Women by and large didn't want their makeup done by a man. It's how other makeup artists saw me too. Like it's a pat down thing. If I was on a set somewhere, I was there to do men's makeup, not the women's makeup. I have so many skills outside of makeup I'm able to apply to the work too. I do a lot of drawing of faces. I do photo editing, which involves touch-ups on faces. I've done art, which involved color mixing. I was very much the most skilled makeup artists around in many cases. Women wanted to wait for one of the women to be free. If I was the only one, some talent would eventually complain and suggest to get a woman next time, and then I'd never get a gig with them again. I guess the biggest obstacle working in the field was working in the field. I effectively was pushed out and do not work in it anymore. Hey, I finally get to answer one of these. I'm an administrative technician, but I have been called a secretary for years. Every meeting I attend, every training I have participated in is primarily women. The biggest obstacles I have faced are in dealing with how to voice my opinion as a male without being downplayed. If I complain that I have a lot of extra work, which happens a lot, my co-workers will explain that it is part of my job, and I should be able to handle it. But whenever they complain about extra work, and I offer to help, they just hand it over and don't even say thanks. Also, I am the go-to guy for heavy lifting. Those banker boxes full of files in Karen's station. You can go move them upstairs, can't you, Twilight Sentinel? Yeah, sure. How many? 20. Ugh. Let me get my beast of burden pants on and get to work. And then there is review time. I see a lot of time when co-workers will take off work to take care of their kids and no one seems to have an issue. But when I ask for a day off because one of my daughters is sick, they mention that I need to figure out how to make it up later. Maybe I'm being weird about it, but it sure feels like preferential treatment. That being said, I like what I do, and I am happy with my job. I just don't like all the issues that I have to be made aware of when I just want to sit and type my reports without a whole lot of chat. I'm a student radiographer doing rotations in a hospital to work in all the modalities and types of diagnostic imaging. However, even though I'd like to see mammography just simply because I want to see all available methods of imaging for different conditions, but not once have I been allowed to even be in the room because female patients simply don't want a man in the room, and staff turning me away when it was offered to the female students. It sucks to be turned away simply because I am a man. When working in a medical field, you get desensitized pretty quickly. You stop seeing body parts you see in the hospital as sexual and simply as anatomy. I can definitely see the hospital and patient point of view, but it still kind of stings. Also, the stigma of myself giving imaging care to younger female patients. The amount of suspicious glares I get from parents and fear of accusations is unnerving, even with a female member of staff with me. Worked jail admin for a year or so. 2 guys, 20 plus women. People could not fricking keep their in-office bitching to themselves. Everyone hated everyone else, and I had to listen to it all, and try like heck not to pick a side. I just wanted to flip the desk and scream, for the love of God. Talk about a book you read or a movie you saw. Anything but another snide pot shot at Jan on the A shift. Work cliques literally suck butt. They suck worse when the guys get involved too. I used to be in a female dominated field. Everything was an obstacle. When I started there, I could really tell my co-workers had been hoping for a female. My managers were extremely happy with me. They gave me some interesting further assignments. But sure enough, when my time limited employment was over, I was replaced by a woman. I was being replaced by that woman right after they had been giving me an expensive house training. Poor use of money, I'd say. Graphic designer. Work in a 90% female department. The biggest issues I deal with that actually impacts the quality of our work mostly involve trying to design for a male audience. For example, we needed to come up with patterns to put on a product whose target audience is college-aged men, specifically targeting the tailgating crowd. I might suggest looking at ESPN graphics for inspiration. Instead, my boss had me make cartoon parrots, pineapples, and sea turtles. The other big issue is that there's a large emphasis on getting along and being fun in the office. Not that being fun and getting along are negatives, but this is to the point that you have to be very careful raising any concerns or criticisms, or else you'll be accused of being overly assertive. It seems that the second issue leads to issues like the first, and generally a lot of problems with quality and hitting deadlines because everyone is afraid to ask tough questions. I think this is as much due to our current team makeup as it is by being an office of mainly women though. Our former manager was also a woman, but much more business focused and things ran a lot more smoothly. There's a difference between girl design and boy design. A good art director can do both regardless of gender, but it's impossible to learn the difference if all criticisms are stifled. People like your co-workers don't even get the message when clients walk and layoffs come. Sever here. I wouldn't say serving is female dominated, but holy crap, the tips they get dominate the crap out of what males get. I can run my boss off to make sure a table can enjoy their meal without having to ask for anything. Refills, extra sauces, pre-buzzing, etc. And usually get a 15-18% just for being a guy, but I see girls put 1/4 of the effort into their tables and walk away with 20-25% tips just for looking good and flirting a little. I'm not saying guys work harder than girls in this field, because there are a lot of female servers that will work just as hard as I do, if not harder. But I am saying there are a few that will rely on their good looks rather than their work ethic to earn better tips. I always wondered why people translate sex appeal to higher tips for waitresses. It's not like it translates to any benefits to them as a customer. She's not going to suck your dong because you overpaid for a steak. As you've said, they actually get worse service. Retail. 70% of company sales were female centric. You have to scratch and claw to be taken seriously because many people fail to understate that selling and merchandising skills have nothing to do with product. I have had multiple managers above me say to my face, we decided to hire a woman for this position because even though you have more experience, we just think women can merchandise this product better. 2.5 years with the company, had paid dues in every work center, demonstrated every necessary skill, and I got skipped over twice so they could give keys to 19-year-old college freshmen with no talent, ambition, or experience. Left for a company with a more masculine bent, and I got made adept head in 5 months, and within 2 years had increased sales over $600,000, with the largest gains coming in, you guessed it, women's product. In my experience it was more of an individual bias, but I began to wonder if there was pressure put on upper management, mostly men, to promote mostly women into lower management. The company has never been shy about congratulating itself on its diversity and gender balance in management. I work in healthcare. No, Regina, I don't want the specifics to your daughter's birthday party in 7 months a 30th time. Please, for the love of God, refrain from talking about your concerns with the consistency of the cake. It's not until fall. I study public health, and while this is less so in grad school than undergrad, I am in a health management master's. There's still a majority females and I have often been the only guy in group projects. Professors will often state that the whole group need not present and each group can elect 1 or 2 people. I have never once not presented despite rarely ever volunteering myself. One time I showed up late to class to find that we'd been sorted into project groups and I had already been volunteered despite not even meeting my group yet. The word you're looking for isn't volunteered, it's voluntold. I often am also voluntold to speak on the behalf of female co-workers when dealing with difficult people. Not a career, but I work in an office doing customer service for an online lending company. Most people in my department are females. The worst you get here is gossip. There's so much drama here and it's over nothing. It's pretty entertaining for me, but it can get pretty annoying. It really just makes me hate everyone, especially since they are all so immature. Some are okay, but there's just a few that are unbearable. My co-workers are mostly female. They seem to be less willing to let go of extra duties, for fear that someone else will succeed and replace them. They just keep taking on more responsibilities without passing old duties onto other colleagues. You end up with 10% of the staff being completely in charge of everything and overworked, while the other 90% has way too much free time on their hands. I don't think that's a gender thing, that's just a work thing. I'm pretty sure you get the same thing in male-dominated jobs too, where it's an option. So I was an early childhood educator, and I worked in a daycare for 3 years. My biggest obstacle had to be the judgmental attitudes often given by parents. On more than one occasion I was not allowed to work with a specific child because the parents requested it. Anyone who knows me knows I love working with kids and I am great at it, but the thing is they don't. I can understand the hesitation though. I am the only male there and seemed very out of place. After a while I am usually able to clear up why I am there through how I interacted with the kids. I had to earn everyone's trust before I could be trusted. It was hard, but it is the only way to make people challenge their own judgment. You have to do it in a way that is not angry and you are not forcing it. If you force it, you look guilty and that just causes more suspicion. Had to just do my thing to earn trust, even if it took a long time. Sales assistant here. I work in an office of about 30 other sales assistants and there is only one other male besides me. The biggest obstacle is just trying to socialize with the women. They're all more than 20 years older than me, so there's an age gap, but regular small talk is a challenge for some reason. Perfect example. Me. Good morning, how you doing? Co-worker. I'm good, but did you hear what Katie, made up name, did? She left her coffee mug in the sink. My god. She's worse than my husband. I spend all my time cleaning up after him. And on it goes like that. So now I just keep to myself and never ask questions. Still they come and gripe to me about crap I have nothing to do with or tell me what they think of one of the other women. TLDR, office women are crazy. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.